Caught between love and frustration, I'm tired of feeling like I'm teaching my boyfriend to be a partner. After a complicated miscarriage, I'm sensing these little red flags could indicate deeper issues. I don't want to break up, but am I ignoring crucial signs before we move in? Summary: I seek guidance on how to communicate my concerns constructively with my boyfriend. I am anxious that the minor issues that trouble me are accumulating into something larger, which I shouldn't overlook as our lives become more intertwined. This is quite lengthy. I apologize to mobile users. I do not want to end the relationship because I love my boyfriend and we usually work through our challenges. However, I am feeling exhausted and need to express some feelings without worrying about my tone or making him feel defensive. Any advice for the future would be appreciated. This may just be a rant, and I am uncertain of how justified my feelings are. I am aware that there are two sides to every situation, so please understand that this reflects my biased perspective after feeling fatigued and somewhat hurt. I experience guilt even while writing this, but I fear I might be heading towards trouble. I am a 25-year-old female and my boyfriend is a 23-year-old male. We have been in a relationship for nearly a year. We lived at opposite sides of the country, so I drove 7 hours each way to visit every couple of weeks. He has a very stable job, and since I did not have anything to keep me where I was living with family while I settled back in after traveling, we decided that I would move in with him, which we will be doing in 2 weeks. Currently, I am staying with his parents, which has been the case for 2 months since I got a job here. The past couple of months have been challenging for us. I struggled a great deal after moving down here and subsequently found out I was pregnant. I knew I would need to terminate the pregnancy, but it evolved into a complicated miscarriage, and 3 weeks ago I experienced heavy bleeding in the emergency room. He was exceptionally supportive during that hospital visit. Honestly, the experience of pregnancy and miscarriage made it difficult for me to be around, and it was almost detrimental to our relationship. I am still feeling fatigued, having lost a significant amount of blood, taken an unpaid week off work, and struggled financially as my car broke down last week due to regular wear and tear, which will be costly to repair. All of this, along with the emotional trauma, has taken a heavy toll. I do not have many friends here, nor have I had the energy or time to make any, as I hastily accepted a somewhat unsatisfactory job to facilitate my move. The area I left was merely a temporary stop, and while I stayed in the country to begin the relationship, I do not have a solid social network here. I am artistic and creative, but the locality is proving quite expensive and frankly dull. I was eager to start martial arts, but I encountered resistance, and when he suggested Pilates instead, we went back and forth until he finally relented. He expresses disappointment over my lack of involvement, but has not acknowledged how exhausted I feel after trying to engage with his family, his club, and my job. I have become quite interested in my boyfriend's hobbies so we can spend time together, which takes up most of our weekends and weekday evenings, but he is often on his phone or preoccupied with thoughts of his interests. Nonetheless, it is not my hobby, and I feel somewhat lost. I love traveling, but I agreed to settle here for a couple of years while we saved to go somewhere else to work together. I was anxious about this decision, but he assured me that we would have that opportunity. If we weren't together, I would probably have pursued traveling on my own. I stayed where I was for a year for the sake of our relationship. Given all of this and my sense of feeling unsettled and drained, I question whether I am overreacting to some underlying issues that concern me. He has consistently praised my emotional intelligence, yet there have been moments when it feels like I am teaching him how to manage his emotions, as he is an only child and sometimes appears quite short-sighted. I am typing this after we agreed to have a lighthearted conversation about going away for a few days around my upcoming birthday, but instead, he downloaded a video game tied to his hobby and sat next to me in silence for nearly 2 hours. I prepared dinner for him and his family, whereas he seldom does this. On rare occasions, he has put together some ready-made meals for us, but he typically prefers eating out. This has left me feeling somewhat deflated. We all cleaned the new house this afternoon, and I thoroughly scrubbed the bathroom while he merely dusted the blinds on 4 or 5 windows. I had to rush from work because he informed me that his mother wished to leave early and was quite stressed. This struck me as peculiar, and when I inquired if he had initiated the early departure to make time for his hobby, he initially denied it but then admitted the truth moments later, stating that he wanted to avoid being reprimanded. He is aware that I worry about upsetting his mother and the small lies irritate me. They happen frequently, yet he simply grinned and laughed about it. He tends to be forgetful regarding plans, things he said he would do, and he often needs to be prompted for almost all chores. He will not do laundry independently, requires reminders to shower even when experiencing a rash, reacts negatively to my pleas for him to do so, expresses dissatisfaction with his physique but refuses to go to the gym, and when I encouraged him, he became irritated with me for pushing. He only unloads the dishwasher when necessary to load it. He does not walk his family dog because he takes his time, so his parents ask me to do it despite both of us working from home quite often. He has a very intense and controlling mother, and I believe this has contributed to his tendency to resist things he does not choose to do for himself. I remain hopeful, and he continually reassures me that this will change once we move in 2 weeks, but it is becoming increasingly tiring. He also mentioned he would quit smoking for fun, yet he found a vaping device shortly after running out of supplies and now uses it daily. While it is not overwhelming, he knows I disapprove and had promised to stop, claiming it would not become a habit, yet I see him using it every day. When I confront him about it, he either becomes annoyed or laughs it off. In arguments, we both experience anger, but he often says hurtful things that he does not mean and then expects to withdraw. I have conditioned myself not to behave this way, but if we have a disagreement and my tone comes across as rude, he expresses concern, even though I feel that my reactions are relatively mild compared to his assertiveness, which he interprets as nagging or pestering. He reacts defensively, so when I feel overwhelmed after he forgets about my sensitivity following the miscarriage, his actions inadvertently cause me emotional distress. His parents are very dominating, and he has claimed he plans to see a therapist. He often suddenly declares himself a terrible boyfriend, prompting me to remind him that this is a statement his mother uses, which he tends to dismiss. He believes I constantly twist his words, and while he does apologize quite frequently, it is not always sincere. Alongside his forgetfulness and tendencies to be self-centered, this behavior has been challenging, especially considering everything we have faced in recent months. I truly love him. His ambition, kindness towards others, and his gregarious nature appeal to me. My family adores him as well. He is generous with his finances, having a decent income and a penchant for buying things for us. But this has also presented some difficulties as we cannot even allocate time to discuss how we will manage living together beyond the vague idea of a 60-40 split. We visited the new house to take measurements recently, and while I was busy with that, I found him sitting on the sofa engrossed in his phone. If I do not initiate discussions, they simply do not occur, and this applies to several important matters. He keeps mentioning plans to propose this year, asserting that our relationship will never dissolve because we manage our conflicts effectively, which we do. However, this can be quite draining at times, especially since moving down here. I feel as if I explain every detail, only for him to respond with, "Oh, right." This might sound trivial, but today I was overwhelmed with work, finances, and my car issues, and he came to assure me that he was indifferent about going away and was trying to be laid back so as not to add stress. However, I wish he would have offered his help or made suggestions. Now this task is on my limitless list of responsibilities, and if left unaddressed, it will again not get done. He claims I am indecisive and prefers when I explicitly articulate my desires, but I am simply depleted. When our relationship began, I appreciated his masculine demeanor and ability to take charge. Having been hyper-independent due to a traumatic childhood, I found this aspect of his character and his early commitment to our relationship, particularly discussions about marriage, refreshing. However, apart from crises in which he shines, this aspect has largely diminished. I vowed not to fall back into the role of teaching a partner how to express emotions, plan dates, or ask for simple gestures like bringing me coffee. Yet I find myself returning to that place. I am beginning to feel anxious, but I suspect I might just need to vent and seek some trauma therapy for the past couple of months, combined with the necessity for us to have our own space, as I recognize this will greatly alleviate his pressure. I realize I am biased, and I certainly contribute to our disagreements and stubbornness. Both of us are strong-willed and eager to be right, and we are actively working on this. However, I feel somewhat overwhelmed right now. I would appreciate advice on how to bring these topics up constructively. He has tentatively agreed to couples therapy, and I want to pursue this option without making him feel attacked. Story 2. After almost 2 years of living together, my former friend B, 22F, ended our friendship via email saying, "We are growing in different directions." I thought we had a connection. Turns out I was just walking on eggshells in my own home. Now I'm heartbroken and left questioning everything. What's next? I am unsure how to begin this. I am emotionally and physically exhausted from this entire situation. I, 24 years old female, have been living with my roommate, whom I will refer to as B, 22 years old female, for nearly 2 years. We met during our final year of college when we were in the same major and had numerous classes together. Our shared interests allowed us to quickly become friends. Eventually, after graduation, we decided to live together. I genuinely believed there was a strong connection between us. We bonded swiftly, and I felt safe and supported by her. She opened up about her challenging relationship with her family, particularly her mother, whom she often described as manipulative or codependent. I believed we were growing closer as friends. A few months after we began living together, she adopted a 4-year-old rescue Shih Tzu named Pebbles from a local shelter. 2 months later, I got a 9-week-old mini golden doodle named Oakley. I had been determined to get a dog for years and had planned this well before she decided to adopt her dog. I assumed we were both aligned on this and spent a month off work training and bonding with my dog to ensure he would fit into our dynamic. About a year into our cohabitation, I began noticing some troubling signs. She seldom took the initiative, showed appreciation, or invested in our friendship. Whenever there was tension, I was the one who had to break the ice, smooth things over, or apologize, even when I was not in the wrong. If I attempted to discuss something that bothered me, she would become defensive, act cold, or make passive-aggressive remarks. Then she would distort things so that I felt guilty for even bringing it up. On the few occasions when she hurt my feelings, she did not take responsibility unless I articulated it clearly, and even then her apologies felt disingenuous. Her behavior was emotionally immature. Instead of communicating like an adult, she would sulk or avoid me. If I shared my struggles, she would redirect the conversation back to herself or act irritated. Occasionally, B would make jokes at my expense or criticize me in ways that seemed too pointed, then claim she was only joking when I addressed it. After documenting all this, I am surprised it took me so long to recognize how toxic she is. Tension between us has been escalating over the past few months, though I am unsure of its origin. Then about 2 weeks ago, everything deteriorated. We have been experiencing issues at our apartment with a cockroach infestation that has persisted for months. That day, we spent hours on the phone with the management company, attempting to resolve the most recent treatment. We were both exhausted. Recognizing her bad mood, I chose to give her space. She went across the street and brought home some sushi for herself. She sat on the couch and my dog, being curious, jumped up to investigate her food. Keep in mind that B is the one who always gives both dogs treats. She provides them with various human foods, so they constantly beg from her. She even shares her food with them while sitting on the couch. With my back turned to them, I heard some commotion. I turned around and saw her shoving my dog away from her, forcing him onto the floor. I said hey and started to walk over to remove my dog. She jumped up, huffed, and stormed into her room, slamming the door. I did not hear from her for the rest of the night. This led to her giving me the silent treatment for the following week. During that silent week, I realized I needed to finally address how she had been treating me. I have autism, so conflict resolution is not my strong suit. I decided that writing her a letter would be the best approach. The letter was quite lengthy, about a page, so I will summarize its contents. In the letter, I expressed how I felt the dynamic between us had become emotionally taxing, leaving me anxious, hurt, and feeling as though I was walking on eggshells in my own home. I acknowledged her forthrightness, which I usually appreciate, but clarified how it could sometimes feel unnecessarily harsh and isolating. I reflected on my tendency to avoid conflict and how I had let things slide at the expense of my own well-being, and I committed to working on that. I also addressed how important my dog is to me as a source of emotional support and how it hurts when he becomes a source of tension. I mentioned that I understood having 2 dogs in the apartment is quite a lot to manage, and I would make a concerted effort to keep up with my dog's training. My dog is not misbehaved. He is a young dog full of energy. This is my first experience owning a dog, so I am still adjusting. There are certainly things both of our dogs do that annoy each other, but I recognize that dogs will behave like dogs. She seems to expect my young puppy to be perfect and never make mistakes. I concluded the letter by stating that I was trying to communicate my feelings honestly, not to spark an argument, and that I cared about our friendship, which is why I wanted to work toward a more respectful, balanced, and supportive relationship. I dedicated several hours over 2 days to drafting, writing, rewriting, and editing this letter, striving to be respectful while still conveying my feelings kindly. Once I felt I had expressed myself appropriately, I intended to give her the letter. Early Friday morning, I prepared for work, and as I left, I placed the letter on her side of the table. I assumed she read the letter because a few hours later, I received a text that stated, "I will be writing you an email since you have expressed that written communication is best for you to process things." I was uncertain how to interpret her tone, but remained hopeful that this would lead to a constructive conversation. I did not anticipate what would unfold next. That night, I returned home from work to find an empty apartment. B, her dog, and the dog crate were gone. I was unsure where she went, but assumed she was staying with a friend to gain some space, which is valid. Later that evening, I received her email. It stated, "Thank you for expressing your thoughts and concerns. I appreciate your honesty. I understand that the dog is vital for your emotional well-being, however, it affects me both emotionally and financially. For example, when he has eaten my food off the kitchen table or tried to eat from my plate. I have set expectations and standards regarding our living situation several times over the past year, and you have agreed to those expectations. However, after a few weeks, you stop following them, which causes frustration on my part. I feel that we are growing and moving in different directions in life. With that being said, I do not believe that living together will be beneficial for either of us. I understand if this makes you uncomfortable and that you would prefer to break the lease. I am more than willing to accommodate this and live with my mother until I find a new living situation." Immediately, I was overwhelmed by a flood of emotions, ranging from anger to sadness. I never mentioned anything about breaking the lease or not living together. All I desired was a simple conversation to address the concerns I felt were damaging our relationship, yet she could not even extend the courtesy of an apology for any of her actions. I called my sister, who came over and stayed with me for an hour while I cried and vented. I felt truly heartbroken. This was someone I believed would be a lifelong friend, someone I had confided in and shared my heart with. Her response felt like a friendship breakup, filled with passive language and evasion. Not only did she fail to take real accountability, but she framed the issue around my dog instead of recognizing that this was more than just last week's conflict. It was about our friendship unraveling. That night, I went to bed exhausted. Saturday morning, I woke up and went to work. When I returned home, I decided to take my dog for a walk to help him expend some energy so he would not cause any trouble. I also wanted to enjoy nature to process everything. Once I arrived at the park, I received a demanding text from her that read, "We need to have a conversation tonight when you are back from your walk." This message caused all those initial emotions to resurface. Why did she believe she had the right to demand that I talk to her now that she perceived there was something to discuss? I responded with the following: based on your limited response to my letter, which focused mainly on the dog and your standards and expectations, I am unclear about what you expect to address. I am angry and hurt by how you have managed this. I do not know when I will be home, but I will inform you if and when I am ready to talk, as I am not ready for a conversation tonight. I went to my parents' house and did not return until late that night after B had gone to bed. When I came home on Sunday, she decided to hang up a curtain separating her room and bathroom from the main living and dining area. I am uncertain if this is normal behavior or simply her being petty. It is now Tuesday as I write this. I feel as though the past few days have stretched into months. My family and some close friends assert that she is quite toxic and even emotionally manipulative. I am unsure what to think anymore. I feel like I cannot trust my thoughts or what I believed I knew. Additionally, I am uncertain about how to proceed from here. I am angry that she has continually twisted everything to portray my shortcomings and my dog's behavior rather than acknowledging the genuine emotional harm she has inflicted. I am also heartbroken that someone I believed to be a true friend could discard me so easily. What steps should I take from this point forward? Summary: I, 24 years old female, have lived with my roommate B, 22 years old female, for nearly 2 years. We were close friends, but her behavior has become distant, passive-aggressive, and dismissive. After a recent incident, I wrote her a letter expressing my feelings and my desire to improve our relationship. She responded with an emotionally detached email suggesting that we no longer live together, thereby ending our friendship. I am heartbroken and confused. What should I do next? Story 3. My boyfriend's just a friend, maybe more. I was cool with him and Angela until he said, "I've never felt so seen before her." After I watched them laughing and flirting, he texted her, "I hope you're okay." Am I overreacting or is this emotional cheating? My boyfriend, 20 years old male, and I, 19 years old female, have been dating for a little over 2 years. We have had some issues arise in our relationship, but I have never felt genuine jealousy until now. Recently, I made a new female friend named Angela. Please keep in mind that she is a lesbian and has been in a relationship for about 1 month. After we became quite close, I decided to introduce her to my boyfriend. Almost immediately, they hit it off and honestly seem to get along even better than she and I do. They share a similar sense of humor, enjoy the same activities, and jokingly tease each other constantly. At first, I brushed this off and felt happy that they were connecting with each other, but now I am fed up with it. It began with small red flags, such as my boyfriend mentioning how intense and bossy she is, but it progressed into a more emotional form of cheating. For instance, one night we were all having dinner together and he brought up his mental health struggles. She immediately focused on him, making unwavering eye contact and asking him probing questions. She insisted that she completely understood him and everything he was sharing. I thought it was nice and did not mind very much at the time, but afterward he kept mentioning that he had never felt so seen and validated by anyone. This hurt a bit, considering I am his actual girlfriend and have been through some heavy experiences with him. There have been a few other instances similar to this one where they engage in deep emotional conversations without including me. The next incident occurred at a party. My boyfriend arrived about 30 minutes before it ended to pick me up and take me home. He ended up staying for a while and we were sitting together on the couch. Angela approached us, plopped down next to him, and they started chatting. I was not fully aware of it at the time because I was a bit out of it, but she was leaning on him and grabbing his bicep the entire time. I understand that she was drunk, but I find her behavior quite disrespectful. He brought it up the following day, saying it felt strange to be between two girls leaning on him. I asked if he enjoyed it and he kind of laughed it off, but it was clear that he appreciated all the female attention. At another party this past weekend, my boyfriend and I arrived about 2 hours late. We walked in and I chatted with Angela for a few minutes until she left me to talk to my boyfriend. I felt a bit upset but chose to ignore it and went to speak with one of my other female friends. Across the room, I saw them laughing, and he appeared happier than he does around me. I even noticed her playfully shoving him a couple of times and getting very close to his face. Later that night, my boyfriend and I were in a corner of the room while Angela was in the bathroom throwing up. He expressed concern for her, and when she returned to the couch, he went to sit beside her without saying anything to me. In that moment, I felt like crying. Once again, I found myself staring at them from a distance, filled with jealousy and anger. When he suddenly felt sick and needed to go to the bathroom, I accompanied him. As I was comforting him and giving him water, Angela barged into the bathroom, headed straight for him, and started touching his back while demanding that he throw up so he could feel better. Her brother intervened and removed her from the bathroom, but I was so fed up that I told my boyfriend we were leaving right then. We left without saying goodbye to her. The next day, my boyfriend mentioned, I don't know why, but after we left, I sent Angela this Snapchat. It was a picture of himself saved in the chat with a text that said something like, I don't know what happened, but I really hope you're okay and not feeling too sick. This was honestly the final straw for me because I do not understand why my boyfriend is so concerned about another woman's well-being. He seems to genuinely enjoy her company and cares a lot about her. I hope I do not sound crazy or possessive, but it genuinely hurts to see my boyfriend so intrigued and concerned about someone who is supposed to be my friend. They continue to send Snapchat messages and TikTok videos back and forth all the time, and I truly do not know how to address this or bring it up with him. I am unsure if it is legitimate for me to feel so upset. Any advice would be appreciated.